Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. In the last couple of months, I've been blessed with the opportunity to go visit many of the sites on the Civil Rights Trail. And I wanted to highlight two places I've visited, the National Center for Civil Rights in Atlanta and the Birmingham Civil Rights Institution, and some of my reflections from the visits to both of those places. In Atlanta at the National Civil Rights Center, one of the things that stuck out was how they presented both white and black as being both positive or for changes for civil rights and others that were resistant or segregationists. And they did a pretty good job of presenting both of those different groups. They also did a really nice job doing the March on Washington. I learned plenty when I did that. But one of the things was they had 10 demands, and one of those was for a national minimum wage, not only for white, but also for black people in the United States. I'm going to read you two quotes, and I want you to try to figure out which one came from what part of the country. So the first quote says, "The Freedom March on Washington yesterday turned out to be a profoundly moving demonstration. So big, so orderly, so sweet singing and good-natured, so boldly confident and at the same time relaxed, so completely right from start to finish, that America was done proud beyond measure." That's the first quote. Here's the second one. "The marchers were not primarily seeking to gain civil rights for themselves, but to deprive others of their civil rights so that the demonstrators might have what belongs to others." So the first one was from the San Francisco Examiner, and the second one was from the Chattanooga Free Press. The San Francisco Examiner was considered to the north or to west, and the Chattanooga is in Tennessee, so that would be from the south. Let's move on to some other things. They did do a nice job at the National Civil Rights Center for Civil Rights, also talking about Martin Luther King and his death. If you're interested in that, I have another video specifically on Martin Luther King and his death, assassination at the Lorraine Hotel, which you might want to check out. Let's move on to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institution. One of the things that I thought they did well is they talked about barriers, and they talked about people having to use different water fountains. They talked about the difference on buses. They talked about the difference between schools, between white and black schools. And they also talked about the difference with convicts and if you're black and you went to jail, how you might have still been forced to work in an environment without getting paid. They also showed a couple of advertisements, and some of those did some of the stereotypes that we saw. We saw people that were subservient, undereducated, adults acting like kids, and these were all used in advertisements during the time. The Freedom Rides, you weren't allowed to take white and black people on the same bus between states. And so the Birmingham, the Freedom Rides were highlighted here. So they showed the whole route, and then they also showed what happened to the buses. The buses were blown up, and eventually the Freedom Riders had to turn around, and then there's another group, etc., and they eventually had to fly for one section of it. But the Freedom Riders were trying to prove that both white and black people could ride this, do something as simple as ride a bus between two different states. Media played a huge role in all of these protests, and that was highlighted as well in the Birmingham Civil Rights Institution. There were lots of different images that were spread around the nation. We started getting news images from one place to the next, showing the atrocities that were being done to black people by people of authority, by police officers and in groups like that, with the approval of the leaderships in those different cities. Martin Luther King's jail cell from where he wrote his famous piece, Letter from a Birmingham Jail, is there. And then there's also something that was pretty, something I didn't know about, but the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed and 4 girls died. But I didn't know that 2 other children were killed that day. One of them, his name was Virgil Ware, and I think he was 13 years old. He was riding his bike, and a 16-year-old white kid shot him. And the white child was convicted of the crime and ended up spending 6 months in juvenile detention for killing a black kid who was riding his bike. One of the final things I want to talk about is the A.J. Gaston Hotel. A.J. Gaston was a very prominent, wealthy black person in Birmingham, and he hosted a lot of these people as they came in to Birmingham. For example, Martin Luther King would have stayed there. So anyways, those are some of my reflections on parts of the Civil Rights Trail, and I will see you in the classroom soon. Take care. Bye-bye.